Ben's ship was falling fast. The control panel blinked red, and sparks flew from the wires above his head. Alarms screamed in his ears, and the oxygen levels dropped lower with every second. Gritted his teeth, pulling on the emergency lever. The tiny escape pod detached just in time, shooting away from the burning wreck. He didn't even have time to check where it was going. All he knew was that the stars turned dark as the pod fell into the gravity field of a nearby moon. When Ben opened his eyes, everything was quiet. The pod had crashed in a rocky valley. Smoke rose from the bent metal. He coughed and pushed open the hatch, stepping out into cold, dusty wind. His suit still worked, but the communicator was broken. The main ship was gone, and this moon wasn't marked on his map. He was completely alone, or so he thought. After collecting some supplies from the pod, Ben climbed to a ridge to look for shelter. Strange trees grew along the edges of cliffs, glowing faintly blue. The sky was dark, but the stars looked close. He followed the path down toward a series of caves. As he moved, something made him stop, a sound, soft, like someone crying. Ben turned toward it, stepping slowly. His hand gripped the tool he used for repairs. It wasn't a weapon, but it might help if there was danger. He followed the sound into one of the caves. The air inside was warmer, almost like something was alive nearby. Then he saw her, a small alien girl, curled in the corner of the cave. Her skin was a pale silver, and her long hair floated slightly in the air, as if it were underwater. She wore a robe that shimmered like the night sky. Around her neck was a bright pendant that glowed like a tiny star. She looked up at him with wide, glowing eyes. She didn't speak. Instead, she pulled her knees closer and stared. Ben knelt down slowly, placing his tool on the ground to show he wasn't a threat. "Hey," he said gently. "I'm not here to hurt you." The girl tilted her head. "You alone?" he asked. She didn't answer, but she nodded. Carefully, Ben took off his backpack and offered her a wrapped food bar. She hesitated, then reached out with thin fingers and took it. Her hands were shaking. She opened it and ate quickly, like she hadn't eaten in days. "You hungry?" he whispered. "Real hungry?" After a few minutes, she stood up. She was small, but her eyes were sharp now. She stepped closer and touched Ben's chest with her hand. Then she looked at the stars outside and pointed upward. "Home," she said softly. Ben's heart sank. She was lost, just like him. He reached for the pendant around her neck and studied it. It looked special, not something normal aliens wore. There were markings on the side shaped like vines and stars. Maybe it was royal. Maybe she was important. She didn't seem dangerous, just scared. Lost. Ben sighed. "All right, kid. Let's find a way to get you home." He led her back to the pod and wrapped her in a blanket. She didn't let go of the food bar the whole time. He gave her water too, and even though she didn't say much, she stayed close to him. When night came, she slept beside him, clutching the pendant. The next day, Ben tried to fix the communicator. He climbed back up to the ridge and aimed the antenna at the stars. Nothing worked. No signals. No help. But far above them, deep in space, someone was already watching. A hidden drone had been circling the moon ever since the girl vanished. It now recorded clear images of the human and the princess. The drone sent the footage back to the main ship of the Starvine Empire straight to the queen herself. When she saw her daughter alive, sitting beside a human man, tears ran down her face. Back on the moon, Ben didn't know he was being watched. He only knew that someone or something was coming. He heard movement in the woods beyond the cave. Fast footsteps, metallic sounds. He held the girl close and pulled her deeper into the shadows. "Stay quiet," whispered. The creatures that appeared weren't human. They were hunters. Tall, insect-like beings with sharp legs and glowing eyes. Bounty hunters, maybe. Looking for the girl, one of them stepped into the cave, sniffing the air. Ben didn't breathe. The girl hid her face in his chest as the creature got closer. Ben grabbed a flare from his belt and lit it. The flash blinded the creature, and Ben kicked hard, sending it crashing into the wall. He grabbed the girl and ran, heart pounding. Behind them, the other hunters chased, But Ben knew these caves better now, used rocks to block the paths, led them into traps he had found earlier. After a long run, they finally escaped. The girl hugged him tightly, her eyes wet with silent tears. He held her back, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. This wasn't just about survival anymore. Had found someone worth protecting. And even if he didn't understand why, he knew one thing. She trusted him, and that meant everything. Ben kept the girl close as they moved through the rocky hills. They had escaped the hunters, but he knew they weren't safe yet. The caves had many paths, but those creatures were smart. They would return, and next time, they would bring more. The girl still didn't speak much, but she followed him with trust. Yet every so often, she would point at the sky and whisper, "Home." Ben nodded, though he had no way of helping her reach it. His pod was broken, his signal was dead, and no one knew where he was, but he had promised to protect her. And Ben always kept his promises. On the second morning, while collecting water near a spring, Ben noticed something strange in the air. The birds had gone quiet. The wind had stopped moving. The silence felt heavy. He turned fast. Saw a small, flying device hovering above the trees. A drone. Its lens glowed red as it scanned him and the girl. Ben grabbed a rock and threw it. The rock hit the drone, but it only wobbled and flew higher, escaping into the sky. Ben cursed under his breath. "They're watching us." He said he and the girl ran back to the cave, but something inside had changed. The cave was no longer safe. He knew they had to move. "We can't stay here anymore," he told her. "We need to go higher. Maybe there's a way to send a signal from the top of the cliffs." The girl nodded. She didn't understand every word, but she understood enough. They packed what little they had and started climbing. The path was hard. The rocks were sharp, and the air got thinner. Ben helped the girl over ledges, sometimes lifting her on his shoulders. She never cried, never complained. She was brave, even for someone so young. As they climbed, the pendant around her neck began to glow brighter. Ben noticed it and asked, "What is that? Is it a beacon?" She looked down at it, then up at him, and nodded once. Ben realized that the pendant might be calling someone or guiding them. Either way, it meant they had a chance. He hoped it was a good one. When they reached the top of the cliffs, the view was wide and clear. Mountains stretched into the distance, and the stars above looked close enough to touch. Ben pulled out his damaged communicator and connected it to the pendant. He wasn't a tech expert, but he had picked up some tricks from his missions. Using wires and tools, he tried to boost the signal. After an hour, something clicked. A blue light flashed. A tone beeped once. Then the device powered up. Ben stared in shock. The pendant had activated the communicator. "Is this thing working?" he asked out loud. A voice answered. "This is Queen Althora of the Starvine Empire. Identify yourself." "Human." Ben froze. He looked at the girl. She was smiling. He turned back to the communicator and replied, "My name is Ben Carter. I found your daughter." There was silence. Then the Queen's voice returned, filled with emotion. Is she safe? Is she harmed?" "She's safe. I've been protecting her. We're on a moon near the Zora Belt. My ship crashed. We're stranded." "We will come for her," the Queen said. "You have done more than we could have asked," returned my daughter. "Human, and my kingdom is yours." Ben's eyes widened. "I don't want a kingdom," he said. "I just want her to get home safe." The Queen paused. "Still the offer stands." Suddenly, the communicator beeped again. Another voice entered the signal. "This is Commander Valek. The princess must be returned at once. Human, do not delay. Your actions are under watch." Ben frowned. Something about that voice felt cold, unfriendly. "Your queen already spoke to me," Ben replied. "I'll wait here until your team arrives." As night fell, Ben made a small fire near the cliff wall. He and the girl sat close, watching the flames. She leaned against him, her eyes half closed. "You're going home soon," he whispered. "You'll be safe again." She looked at him and held out the pendant. She pressed it gently into his hand. Ben tried to give it back, but she shook her head. "You keep," she said softly. Before he could answer, the air above them shifted. A large ship appeared in the sky, its engines silent but strong. It hovered. For a moment, then a beam of light shone down. From that light, a landing pod descended, touched the ground softly, and the door opened. A group of armored aliens stepped out. They wore the colors of the Starvine Empire. Their faces were hidden behind masks. One of them stepped forward. "We are here for the princess," said. Ben looked at the girl. She held his hand tighter. "Where's the queen?" Ben asked. "She remains on her ship," the soldier replied. "Then she should come down herself," Ben said firmly. "This girl has been through enough. She won't leave with strangers." There was silence. Then another voice came through the pod. "Let him speak to me," the queen ordered. A tall, elegant alien woman appeared on the screen. Her face was kind but serious. "Ben Carter. Thank you for saving my daughter. I wish to speak with you in person." Ben nodded slowly. "Then come down," he said. "She trusts you, not them." The queen gave a small smile. "Then I will." The screen turned off. The girl looked at Ben one more time. Her eyes filled with quiet hope. She knew this was the moment everything would change. The wind picked up as the queen's ship slowly descended from the clouds. It hovered above the ridge, casting a long shadow across the rocks. Ben stood still, the girl by his side, holding his hand tightly. He didn't know what to expect. The soldiers who had arrived earlier moved to the sides, forming a path. The ship released a smaller platform, which gently floated to the ground. When it touched the stone, the door opened, and a tall figure stepped out. She was graceful, dressed in flowing silver robes that shimmered like starlight. Her skin was pale violet, and her eyes glowed with a deep blue light, the pendant around. Her neck matched the one her daughter wore. The alien queen had arrived. She looked at Ben first, then at the girl. The child let go of Ben's hand and ran to her. The queen dropped to her knees and opened her arms wide. They held each other in silence, their heads touching. Ben stepped back, giving them space, though he couldn't stop a small smile from forming on his face. After a moment, the queen stood and looked at him. "You protected her," she said quietly, "when no one else could." Ben nodded. Was alone, scared. "I did what anyone should have done." "No," she replied, stepping closer. "Many would have ignored her, or sold her for power. But you kept her safe, even when hunted." Ben looked down. "I didn't do it for thanks." "And that," the queen said, "is why you deserve it." She raised her hand and spoke with calm power. "Return my daughter, human end. My kingdom is yours." Ben blinked. "I told you, I don't want a kingdom, just want her to be safe." The queen gave a soft smile. "My offer still stands. You've shown courage, kindness, and loyalty. These are qualities we value deeply. May ask anything of me, and it will be yours." Before Ben could speak, one of the armored guards stepped forward. "My queen," the soldier said firmly, "we must leave now. There are still threats in this area. We cannot delay." The queen turned her head slightly. "Commander Velek, I will not be rushed. This human is a guest of the Empire." Ben narrowed his eyes. He remembered Velek's voice from the earlier message. Cold, commanding. Velek stepped closer. "The princess is now safe. The human's part is done." The queen raised her hand to stop him. Enough. But Velek didn't move back. Instead, he stared at Ben. A human should not be trusted with royal lives. They are unpredictable, dangerous. The queen's voice was sharp. "He is under my protection." Ben felt tension rise. In the air, the girl had moved behind her mother, clutching the queen's robe and staring at Velek with wide eyes. Ben stepped forward calmly. "If you think I'm a threat, then you're not watching closely enough. I didn't come here to fight. I just came to survive. I found her." Velek's eyes glowed slightly, perhaps too lucky human. The queen turned. "Commander, return to the ship." Velek hesitated. Then, with a slow nod, he stepped back. The queen let out a quiet sigh. You must forgive him. He lost many soldiers searching for my daughter. His heart is loyal but clouded." Ben nodded. "I understand." She looked at Ben again. "Please, come with us. To the capital world. We wish to honor you." And the queen gently placed a hand on the girl's head. "Wants you near." The girl stepped forward and took Ben's hand again. He looked at her and smiled. "Guess I don't have a choice." The queen gave a light laugh. "You always have a choice. But sometimes the heart already decides." They boarded the platform together. The soldiers followed. As it rose into the air, Ben looked down at the quiet moon below. It had been lonely, dangerous, but it had also changed everything inside the royal ship. The walls were covered in soft lights. Alien symbols glowed gently across the floor. The girl showed Ben her room, a floating bed, music that played with a thought, and stars visible from her ceiling. She held out a drawing she made. It was of her and Ben standing on a hill, under a sky filled with stars. Ben couldn't speak. He just hugged her gently. Later, the queen brought him to the bridge. There she showed him a map of the empire, thousands of stars, dozens of planets. Her voice was calm. "We have known humans as traitors, sometimes fighters, sometimes fools, but never like this." Ben raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Like someone who reminded us how important kindness is." Ben looked at the stars. "You really would have given me your kingdom?" "Yes," the queen replied, "'cause you gave me something far greater." Ben stayed quiet. "Your future," the queen continued, "can be with us, or you may return to your world. But no matter what you choose, you are now part of our story." Ben looked at her. "And what about Vivelic?" Her eyes narrowed slightly. "I will handle him. He will not harm you, or her." Ben nodded slowly. He had come from a broken ship, a quiet moon. Now he was inside a royal star cruiser, a princess, holding his hand, and a queen offering him a place in a world far bigger than he ever imagined. He didn't ask for it, but maybe, just maybe, it was where he belonged now. The capital world of the Starvine Empire was like nothing Ben had ever seen. The sky shifted colors every hour, from deep purple to soft gold. Towers floated in the air, connected by glowing bridges. Creatures of every kind walked freely, some with wings, others with 4 arms, and many who bowed as the queen passed. Ben stood beside her in a large open plaza. The people stared at him, whispering in different languages. Most had never seen a human up close before. Some looked curious, others cautious. The queen raised her hand, and the crowd grew quiet. "This is Ben Carter," she said. "He returned what we thought was lost. My daughter, our future." The crowd cheered, but Ben felt a little awkward. He wasn't used to attention. He looked down at the girl beside him. She gave him a small smile and squeezed his hand. After the ceremony, they returned to the palace. Ben was shown to a room near the royal chambers. It had soft walls, warm light, and food made just for humans. It was strange, but peaceful. Later that night, the queen asked him to join her in the private council chamber. Around the table sat several alien advisors. Most greeted Ben politely, but Vivelic was there too. His expression was unreadable. "We are grateful to the human," one of the advisors said. "But what role will he play now?" The queen answered calmly. "He will remain close to the princess." As her guardian and friend, Vivelic leaned forward, a human near the future ruler of our empire. Ben stayed silent. He didn't want to cause trouble. But the queen's tone became sharper. "You question my judgment, Vivelic?" "No, my queen," he replied. Reminding this council of risks, another advisor spoke. "Perhaps we should test his loyalty." Ben looked up. "Receive threats from outer rebels," the advisor explained. "They want to challenge the queen's rule. If this human truly stands with us, he could help on a mission." The queen didn't look pleased, but Ben nodded. "I'll do it." "If it helps you trust me," the queen hesitated. Then she agreed. "Very well, but he won't go alone." The next morning, Ben was given a small team, a mix of alien soldiers and one royal pilot. The mission was simple: fly to a nearby moon. where rebel signals were coming from, and investigate. As they left the capital, Ben glanced out the window. The princess waved at him from the palace balcony, her pendant glowing in the sun. He waved back, wondering what he had just agreed to. Journey took only a few hours. When they landed on the dark moon, everything seemed quiet. It's quiet. Ben stepped out first, scanning the rocks and ruins. The air was cold. The team moved in a circle, keeping their weapons ready. Suddenly, an explosion shook the ground. Dust flew into the air, and one of the soldiers fell. Shadows moved between the rocks. Ambush, someone shouted. Blaster fire filled the air. Ben ducked behind a stone wall, pulling out a small energy shield. He wasn't a soldier, but he knew how to survive. He saw one rebel running toward a fallen guard. Ben jumped forward and tackled him. The alien hissed and swung a blade, but Ben blocked it and hit him with the shield's edge. More rebels came. The team fought hard, but it was clear the rebels had been waiting. Someone had told them about the mission, someone from the inside. They finally drove the rebels back. The survivors escaped into the tunnels. Ben's team had losses. The pilot was injured. 2 guards were gone. They returned to the ship in silence. Back in the capital, the Queen met them herself. Ben reported everything, including the ambush. The Queen listened closely. Then she turned to her council. This was no random attack. Someone gave the rebels our mission plan. Her eyes moved to Vivek. Only 5 people knew about this mission, she said, and 3 of them were in this room. Vivek said nothing. Ben stepped forward. He wants me gone. Maybe he thought I wouldn't return. Vivek stood. You think I would risk the princess's life just to remove you? Ben stayed calm. I don't know what you're willing to risk, but I know someone set us up. The room went quiet. The Queen said, I will open an investigation. Till then, Ben remains in the palace. Vivek didn't argue. But his eyes said everything that night. Ben sat on the palace balcony. The stars above seemed quieter than before. The princess came to sit beside him, wrapping a soft blanket around them both. She didn't speak. She just rested her head on his arm. Ben looked down at her. You all right? She nodded. He came back. He smiled, always, far in the shadows of the palace. Vivek watched them with cold eyes. He knew the human had gained more than just the Queen's favor, had the people's heart and the princess's trust. And that made him dangerous. The Queen's palace became quiet after the mission. Ben was safe, but something had changed. Guards now stood at every door. The hallways were checked often. The Queen gave no orders, but her eyes watched everything. The princess stayed close to Ben. She no longer smiled at the other nobles. Even when lessons were called, she asked for Ben to join. When she trained in royal speech, Ben sat near. When she ate, Ben sat with her. She would not let him go. One day Ben stood by the garden wall, watching the sky. The princess tugged on his hand. She handed him a drawing this time of a large bird flying over the stars. The bird had a tiny figure riding on its back. That's you, she whispered. Ben smiled. And where are you? She pointed at the sky. Above, but still watching. Just then, a soft alarm rang through the palace. It wasn't a danger alert, but a private signal. The Queen was calling him to the council chamber. Ben told the princess he'd return and followed the guards. Inside the chamber, only the Queen and one trusted advisor waited. A screen showed a recording. Ben watched closely. It was footage from the ambush moon, but not the battle it was before that. The video showed a small, dark pod landing minutes before Ben's team arrived. From it, a cloaked figure stepped out and handed something to one of the rebel scouts. Ben's eyes narrowed. You see it, don't you? The Queen asked. Ben nodded. Vivek. The figure had Vivek's stance, his tall form, his exact walk. There was no sound, but Ben didn't need to hear it. The rebel scout had bowed in fear. They had planned the attack together. He betrayed you, Ben said quietly. The Queen stayed calm. We have no full proof. Not yet, but I trust what my daughter suoned what you survived. Ben leaned forward. Then let me stop him. Cannot face him alone. the queen said. I won't be alone, Ben replied. But I can't just sit here. The queen thought for a moment. Then she gave him a small silver pin shaped like a star. This gives you the right to speak in my name, she said. Use it wisely. Ben returned to his room and found the princess waiting. She could tell something was wrong. Her small hands reached out and touched the pin. He hurt you, she said softly. Not yet, Ben replied. But he might hurt others. I have to stop that. The princess held his hand tightly. She looked up and whispered, Promise you'll come back. Ben knelt down and said, I will always come back, always. That night Ben moved through the quiet palace with 2 trusted guards. They followed hidden paths that led under the council tower. The lower levels held old records, data logs, and secret rooms places only royal command could enter. They reached a sealed door. Vavilek comes here often. One of the guards whispered. Ben opened the panel using the queen's pin. The door slid open. Inside was a dark room filled with strange tech. Maps of rebel movements, messages half deleted. And in the center a plan to take control of the throne. He wants to remove her, Ben said. Make himself ruler. Just then, footsteps echoed behind them. Vavilek stepped into the room, his eyes glowing faintly. I knew you'd follow, he said. Ben stood tall. You set us up, betrayed your queen, almost got your future ruler killed. The empire is weak under kindness, Vavilek said. Your presence makes it weaker. Ben raised his chin. No. It made your lies harder to hide, Vavilek drew a blade. The guards moved forward, but Ben held out his hand. I'll face him. They circled each other slowly. Vavilek moved first, fast and sharp. Ace's Ben blocked with a shield. Their weapons clashed. Light flashing in the room. Vavilek was stronger, but Ben had something else, heart. He remembered every moment with the princess. Every time she looked at him with trust. Every promise he had made. He couldn't lose. The fight was quick and hard. Vavilek knocked Ben back once, cutting his arm. Ben fell, but rolled away. Then he used a trick he learned from the rebels, dust in the eyes. He threw a pinch of bright powder from his pocket. Vavilek shouted in pain. Ben tackled him, knocking the blade away. The guards rushed in and locked metal cuffs around Vavilek's arms. You're finished, Ben said, breathing hard. The queen arrived moments later. She looked at Vavilek with sadness, not anger. You had every chance, and you chose this. Vavilek didn't answer. The queen turned to Ben. You saved us again. Ben shook his head. I did what I had to. She stepped closer and touched the cut on his arm. And still, you ask for nothing. It's only that she's safe, he said. The queen looked past him. The princess had entered the room. She ran to Ben and hugged him tightly. You came back, she whispered. He smiled. I promised. The palace was quiet the next morning. The sun rose slowly over the shining towers of the capital world. Soft golden light touched the walls of the royal halls, and the city below seemed calm like the storm had passed. Ben stood on a balcony, his arm wrapped in clean bandages. He watched the sky in silence. Part of him still couldn't believe how far things had come from crashing on a strange moon to standing in the queen's home. Trusted and honored, behind him, soft footsteps approached. It was the queen. You. Haven't slept, she said gently. Ben smiled faintly. Too much on my mind. You ended a betrayal that might have destroyed us, she said. You protected my daughter again. And yet you still stand here quietly like it was nothing. Ben turned to face her. I didn't do it for praise. I did it because she needed someone. And maybe I needed someone too. The queen stepped closer, her voice calm and full. Of respect, you changed more than just our court. The people speak of you. The nobles now look at humans differently. And my daughter, she sees you not as a protector, but as family. Ben's heart softened. She means more to me than I can explain. Then stay, the queen said, not as a guest, not even as a hero. Stay as part of us, my daughter's protector, her guide, her friend. Ben looked out at the sky again. What about Earth? They've already been contacted, she said. Your name is being honored across both our worlds. He gave a small laugh. I was just trying to fix my ship. He ended up fixing more than that, she replied. Later that day, a grand ceremony was held in the royal court. The entire capital watched from the sky platforms. Screens floated above, showing every word, every moment. Nobles, traders, citizens, and even distant allies had gathered to see the human who saved the Starvine Empire's future. Ben stood at the queen's side, wearing a robe given only to those with highest honor. The princess stood beside him, smiling proudly, her pendant shining bright under the light. The queen raised her hand. Today, we honor Ben Carter, not just for saving my daughter, not just for surviving against rebels and lies, but for showing us that heart matters more than blood, that trust is stronger than fear. Cheers filled the air. She turned to Ben and held out a silver crest. It was shaped like a star in a flame. This, she said, marks you as one of us. From this day forward, you are guardian of the Princess and a voice of peace between our worlds. Ben took the crest, his voice steady. I accept. Ah. And I promise to protect her not just because it's duty, but because she's worth everything. The crowd cheered again. After the ceremony, as the people celebrated, Ben walked through the royal garden with the princess. She was quiet but peaceful. You happy? He asked. She nodded. With you here? Yes, good. Ben smiled. Because I'm not going anywhere. She held his hand and looked up at the sky. Someday I will be queen. I know, he said. Will you still stay? Ben knelt beside her and said, no matter what you become, I'll be here. You're never alone. The next few weeks passed with peace. Vivek was removed quietly from the court. No public shame, just silence. He had been sent far away. Where? He could do no more harm. Ben spent his days learning the language of the court, training with the royal guards, and guiding the princess through her lessons. Sometimes they laughed, sometimes they just sat under the stars in silence. One evening, the queen invited Ben to a small dinner. Only the three of them sat together, Ben, the queen, and the princess. The queen raised her glass. Two strange beginnings, she said. Ben chuckled. An unexpected family. The princess added softly, and promises kept. They toasted. That night, as Ben returned to his chambers, he found something left on his bed, a small crystal cube. When he touched it, it lit up and played a recording. It was the Queen's voice. If you're hearing this, then you have become more than we ever imagined. Not just a hero, but a bond between two stars. Thank you, Ben Carter. Not for what you did, but for who you are. Ben held the cube tightly. He knew he had made the right choice, and far above. In the starlit skies, the story of the human and the princess spread across galaxies. Story of trust, kindness, and loyalty. Story that reminded everyone's. Sometimes, the strongest bond doesn't come from power or blood, but from a promise made under the stars.